Alright, so I decided I might as well make this a two-part video while I'm at it. Back to the carburetor. Like I said before, this is your fuel line, where your fuel goes into the fuel bowl. Then, inside the carburetor, it's mixed with air, shot down through the carburetor, down through the bottom of your carburetor. When you give it gas, of course, it goes to your cylinders, which have pistons, such as these, which is now an ashtray. Makes a spark. Pistons take the spark. The rod's on the bottom of the pistons are drove down, which turns your crank, which pushes another piston up, and that piston fires and does the same thing, and that's how your car runs. The carburetor is a mystery for a lot of people, but it's pretty basic. I'll go into it a little bit more. I'm just going to show the vacuum lines, but I'm out here freezing anyway, so I might as well go into it. So you have a fuel line that runs into your carburetor. It mixes it. When you give it gas, of course, you get more fuel kicking through it, which makes your car run faster. Well, actually, it's more air. It kind of operates like an air pump, except with explosions. And one of the things that control your carburetor, a couple things you want to check on. One is your choke. If your choke is wide open and it's cold out, your car is not going to run for crap. So you want a choke that works. If your choke sticks open, your choke won't move, you have problems with it, they sell manual choke kits, which come with a little something like this, and you run a wire to a knob inside your car, and you can manually open and close your choke. That's what I did for many years. Some people can never get the hang of it. I like it. The other thing you want to do on your carburetor, make sure of, on the choke, is you want to make sure that your fast idle screw, which I showed you before, it's the screw right here, isn't too far in, where it will continue to, it'll go down so far that your car's not getting enough gas, it will die. If it's tightened in too far, your car's going to run at an insanely high idle. So by backing that off, you can slow down the idle, and by tightening that up, tighten that in, you can tighten it in, you increase the idle, you let it out, you slow down the idle. The jets on the front, well actually inside, are controlled by these screws, which control how much gas gets through. Like I said, they're tiny little screws, and they're kind of hard to see on this one. But those control your fuel mixture, and if you're running rich and you smell gas, you might want to tighten those up a little bit. If you're running lean, getting a little pinging, maybe a little backfire from pre-ignition, you might want to loosen those up and see if that improves it. I always start, if I get a carburetor that I don't know where it's set at or how much wear they have on them, I tighten them in, turn them out 4 turns, and go from there. If you don't have to touch them, don't touch them, because they're really easy to mess up, and then you get a whole troubleshooting process to go through. That's the main settings on a carburetor, and like I said, you have your brake airline coming in, your PCV valve line somewhere on it, and then you'll have another line for your vacuum advance if you have that. I've seen really old cars that don't have a brake, don't have a vacuum advance. All they have is a fuel line coming in. But those are, I think it was a 30 Ford I was working on that was like that. And all the main air mixture control was controlled by the choke and one jet screw on it. And of course they had an idle stop. That's how basics of a carburetor. I mean, it's pretty easy. Inside's a little more detailed. It's too cold for me to take this apart out here. But like I said, I'm just trying to give a quick overview of it. And as I said, if you have vacuum ports coming off of it that are open, those are sealed real quick and real easy with some little plastic caps they sell. And I actually have some in my drawer here. They're just little plastic caps, and they just slip right over your ports. And then I had some questions on a distributor, so I might as well show what one looks like inside. This is your vacuum canister that I was talking about in that one, and you adjust it inside here with a little Allen wrench. You stick it in there, you can back it out and tighten it up, and that affects your vacuum advance. Vacuum advance, if your car is sitting at an idle and it runs weird, you're probably not worried about your vacuum advance. The advance kicks in at cruising speeds, and it'll jump your advance up from 4 or 5 degrees up to about 12. It's for better efficiency. A lot of people I know, they drive foot to the floor, take off, and in all honesty the vacuum advance doesn't make a big difference for them, and they actually will plug it. And of course this is the rotor, which goes around and hits the towers on the cap and sends a spark. Now there's been a couple questions about how this thing actually what turns this. There's a gear down in your oil pan which lines up with this, and as I was telling you before about the piston getting pushed down on the rod turning the crank, well, all that drives an oil pump, which is at the exact same time drives this gear. Well, not the oil pump itself, but so that turns, which turns the distributor, makes the distributor rotor turn inside. So everything has to be timed properly, because you want your piston at top dead center when the rotor touches the metal prong inside the cap, which sends a spark down the plug to the plug wire, which explodes on top of the piston, which turns and pushes the next one up, and so on and so on and so on. And that's how your engine constantly turns. So if your engine's constantly turning and firing well, and your carburetor's mixing the gas to the right mixture and letting enough in and has a proper feed to it, your car is going to run alright. Everything after that's tuning. Now, like I said, I made this video because I had some questions come in, and I've been talking to a couple people who had questions on this and that, so I have another video, actually a 3-part, on how to set your timing. So I hope this clarifies a couple things that I had talked about on that video.